So just let me stop sharing for a second. No questions. Okay, awesome. So even before we start looking at dashboards, I want to do something just to make sure that anyone who hasn't used Edwin or has just signed in for the first time, it's really important to set up the subject that you have access to. Some of you we may have sent emails out to in the last couple of weeks here. And so if you haven't set your subjects up in Edwin just before we begin, when you first log on and click into the library, it's going to ask you this question, and then your subject library has to be set within 30 days. And so some of you have gotten reminders on that. But if you haven't seen it yet, just make sure that you click on the library, go in, pick Alberta and English Language Arts, and to save that as your preference. Okay. If you had done that by mistake and picked a different subject, that's okay. Within that time, you can just go back here, click on the pencil, right, and make sure that you change that. So, oh. Is there an echo or is it me? No, we're good. Okay, sorry. So that's the very important step because with Calgary Catholic, we're having access to English Language Arts this year. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my home screen. Okay, so dashboards, as I was mentioning, sorry, I'll put my notes back up there. This is very important because this is how you give students access the first time. And what's really incredible is that within this first month, there's already 1,000 Calgary Catholic students that have been invited. And so for those of you who have already got this, just bear with me for a couple of minutes as I help some other people go through it, okay? So dashboards are great because they get your students licensed, but then later we're gonna look at how it goes, gives you a bird's eye view of all the activity that your students have in Edwin. And that can be very helpful for targeted support and also, of course, report card time, right? Okay, so when you first come into Edwin, there will be this dashboard button at the bottom here, and there's got a little pop-up that says create a class dashboard and invite students. So we're going to click into here, right? And if for those of you who have another screen or have, Edwin open another browser, you can just follow along right now and get this set up and out of the way. When I click here, I can go to create dashboard, right? And I can name my dashboard whatever I need to do, whatever I need for to give my students a place to go. So Mr. Thompson's homeroom or his ELA class or whatever you want. This doesn't really matter because you can go back and change these titles and these details at any time. But what the most important part of this dashboard, though, is the start date. If you pick this into the future because you're like, well, I'm not starting till next week, that may cause a hiccup because then your students won't be able to see it when they try to log in the first time, right? So please pick either a present day or a day in the past, right? And then your end date can be any day. And again, the end date and all that can be adjusted as we go, right? So then you just pick your class that you want. Again, this can be changed, right? And as soon as you create that class, you'll get this wonderful code, right? So this is the code that you'll either write on your board for your students to join, right? And you can just, have them go to go.edwin.app and sign in with that. And I'll show what that looks like in a moment. Or you can just copy this link and send the link to the students. Okay, so I'm just going to show you real quick what a student looks like if they're trying to get in here. So students would go to go.edwin.app. And if they try to sign in before you give them a code, it won't let them in, right? So your students have to click on this button at the bottom that says enter your class code, right? And they would type in that code. So I was with another school the other day, and they're talking about how some students, they're not always great at following instructions, right? And so when they see this page, this might be a little confusing, right? Because they'll just go and click on sign in to begin with. So what I like to do is I like to copy that link, right? So if I show that again, I copy this link, right? And then I would send it to them either in a Google Classroom post or a direct email. And then when they come, instead of going to that login screen, see how it already puts the class code in for them, right? And now when I hit continue, it'll say, do you want to join Mr. Thompson's homeroom? They hit continue, and then they're up and going. So that's how you get your class up and running with in Edwin. So any quick questions about that? I just wanted to get this kind of like, very business style thing to get your students licensed out of the way. So Alana, any questions about this so far?
No questions so far, Sai.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Edwin screen. So yeah, so that is the dashboard. Feel free if you have any trouble over these next few weeks that you can reach out directly to me. My email will be attached to this invitation as well and in your slides later on. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about sharing resources, right? So you've had a chance to go into Edwin a little bit over this past month and play a little bit. So we'll make sure that you can get some of this content out to your students. So now I'm going to go into Edwin myself. For those of you who haven't had a chance to see Edwin yet, this is what the Edwin login first homepage looks like. You've got your resources at the top, some tools, and your collections and dashboards at the bottom. And again, we're going to come back to dashboards a little bit later, but let's get right into that content. Okay, so we've explored and we've played a little bit. And so one thing that I want to share with my kids, because I know that we've got a poetry unit coming up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search up here for keywords, and I'm going to look for poems, right? On the left side here, you can filter by the specific grade that you're in. So if you only want grade 5 content or grade 4 content, you can do that. You can also filter by text, video collection, and interactives up here. And when you click on one of these, it'll obviously just filter your results. But, you know, I just want my kids to read. So let's see here. I'm going to click on Poems to Celebrate. So here is a great collection of poetry. So what's fun about Edwin is that you're going to have tools everywhere, right? And so all this content is digital. So remember that your students, when they're reading along, and if they don't know what splendor means, right, you can highlight it and then you can get the definition, right? So that's a great way to go. I am in French today. That is amazing. Hold on. No, I'm supposed to be in English. That was very interesting. Okay, hopefully the definitions don't come back up in French. Let's try this another one. Sorry about that. Life is interesting. Let's try blow. Yeah, there we go. English again. Okay, that was very interesting. So it's great because it does give those definitions and allows us text to speech. Blow. Right? But what's really great about Edwin is that we can contextualize things, right? So if you did just highlight some of this content and push the play button or the play button here.
The splendor falls on castle walls. And
so that's still just kind of the robotic text-to-speech, which is fine for some people, but poetry is different, right? So we need a little more emphasis. And so what we've included in this specific resource, right, is an audio player. So now instead of hearing that with the robotic voice, if you push play in this specific resource.
Afternoon on a Hill by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I will be the gladdest thing under the sun. I will touch 100 flowers and not.
So as you can tell, it's kind of nice to have a recording that has a little more emphasis for those students that need it. It's great with these accessibility features to, you know, level the playing field a little bit more and support students, right? So we've scrolled through this resource. We've looked at the teaching notes. That's how you click on the educator tools, turn them on, right? And this gives great prompts and suggestions to help out with all these readings. So that way you're like, okay, you know what? This is a great batch of poetry and I can definitely let my kids take a look at it, right? So this is how you would share. You can click directly on the link just to get the link, right? And then you could email it to your students. You could post it just as a classroom post. Or what I like to do if I'm not using Classroom, right? So maybe I've got an agenda in slides, right? So I like to copy that link. So once again, I'll just click on copy, get shareable link, right? And then in my slides here that I share with my student, they've got it bookmarked and this is where they go to all the time, right? Because I'm not quite ready with Google Classroom yet, or I just want them to be in one place. Then I can just highlight text in my slide, right? Insert the link, right? And so now whenever my students come in to the day, they can just click on there and go directly to Edwin and they don't have to worry about, you know, where things are posted. So that's one way I definitely like to share links with my students, right? Another way, of course, as I mentioned, you can share it to posting to Classroom separately. But what's really fun about Edwin is that we actually have it built right into Edwin. So if you click on the Share to Google Classroom button, right? It'll allow you to pick your class, right? So I'm going to pick language arts, and I'm going to make this into an assignment. This time, I'll hit go. It automatically takes the description from here, and so I might want to delete that, or if I'm okay with it, I can just let it go if it's a really structured resource in Edwin. But this one, I'm going to say, please read the poem and complete the attached assignment. Okay, and I'm going to assign it to my class. Right? And so it's right there. So what I like to do though, so instead of just looking at this and following along with the instructions, what if I want to take this up another level, right? What if I want to have them do more than what's in here, right? So I could actually add another Google Doc to support the learning of this resource, right? So this time when I go into my language arts, right? So I posted a new assignment, okay? And I'm going to edit it. So I'm going to go into my assignments and edit. And this time I'm going to add a Google Doc to it. With Classroom, it opens up the doc automatically. And again, since Edwin is digital, I can take these questions straight from here, highlight, copy, and then I can paste it into my document, right? So, or I can, there we go. So that way the kids can have a place to write their answers there, especially if I'm going to do something a little fancier, right? So in this case, what I love about poetry, and again, having it be digital, I can copy the questions, or I could copy the whole poem, right? And so here's an example of something that you could do because you can copy the text, right? Has anyone heard of blackout poetry or redacted poetry? One of my favorite fun things. I used to teach English myself, right? Where they take the poem, right? And now because they can work with things, right? The town, which must start down, and I can then play with my highlighter, right? Black out the words, or if I want to take the words back, right? I can go back to my highlighter and I can have none, right? And so now I've actually changed the poem, and it's kind of fun, and the kids could work on this together. So that's a fun way because I can just give the instruction, choose one of the poems from Edwin, and then create your own redacted poem. I will be under the sun, 100 flowers, not one, right? So those are a couple ways to share resources in Edwin, right? So I'll just recap real quick. You can share through the link, or of course you can share through Google Classroom, or if you have another outside source, just add your link there, right? Okay. So any quick questions so far, Alana?
There's been a couple, but I've been answering them, so you can continue.
Awesome. See, this is why it's great to have Alana as my sidekick for these. Oh, sorry, co-presenter, right? Okay, so let's go back to our presentation here. So that was sharing resources. The next thing we're going to look at are collections. And so that was sharing one resource at a time. But the really great thing about Edwin is that just like you, everything's not in isolation, right? You can share a number of things, so that way you can stop the infinite scroll on your Google Classroom page of link after link after link. But you also don't have to make these collections by yourself. So if you haven't had a chance to explore Edwin yet fully, we're going to show you where you can get curated collections and then customize them yourself, right? To help with, differentiation and changing up levels of things like that as well, right? So I'm going to show you a couple collections, and then we're going to work with those collections. Okay, so I'm going to pop into grade 5 here. So this is the subject. I hope some of you had a chance to explore some of the great resources that we have here, right? So this is all your subject material here on the left. If you do all of these, it'll cover all the outcomes, right? So if you were wondering about some outcomes and how they're tagged, I'll just show you real quick as a little reminder for some of you. This is the Browse by Curriculum button, okay? And when you browse by curriculum, you'll see that the new learning outcomes are here down to the understanding level, right? So if I wanted to check on if there's vocabulary, right, I can then click on those and do a search, and it'll reveal just the resources tied to that, how you can find those with the resource. For example, if I come in here, right, So writing a speech, for example, if I click on these three dots and click on the I, this will reveal these outcomes, right? So I can see that this is genre, right? Because it's writing a speech, right? There's language as well, because this is oral language. So it's kind of nice to know that the resources are tagged to the new outcomes. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back because I wasn't going to show this, but now here on this side, right? So this is your suggested learning path. But for those of you who want like mini lessons or little units, right? I love these curated collections. So these are created by our publishing team, right? So if you were just going to work on capitalization, right, you can click on this collection and you can see that we've got all the resources that are tied to this specific topic over on this side, right? Some instructions here, and then you can copy to your collections if you want to modify it, or like we shared before, you can click on the link if you like it as is and just share it with your students, right? So I'm going to go back here and let's take a look at customizing one of these collections, right? So I'm going to look at visualizing setting, right? So short stories are coming up. This is something that we need to do. And what I really like about Edwin and these specific kind of little mini lessons is often they'll come with a slide deck, right? That you can customize with your students and have them do this as their demonstration of learning, right? So you can look through here, what's your preference, right? They could then interact with it and move those things around, okay? Talk, read the story. Okay, yeah, this is actually a decent lesson, right? So I like this, right? But you know what? There may be too many things. Maybe I don't want to work with purpose this time, right? So what I can do is create a copy. And now when I have this copy, right, I can do whatever I want to this collection. So if I want to change my title, right, I can change this to visualizing setting for grade 5. If I need to change some of the learning goals, because maybe we're only going to look at details and setting and we're not going to do inferencing in this case, so I can just delete that, right? And I can save it. Okay, and so as I mentioned, I'm not going to do purpose this time. I want to focus specifically on setting because this group of students, they can't do two things at once. So I'm actually going to click on the three dots and I'm going to delete matching voice to purpose. Okay, I'm going to delete this curriculum connection doc because that one isn't the one that applies to you. And I'm going to show you a different collection curriculum connection doc a little bit later. And so now I have just a simple 4 resource collection that I can share with my students. And I've then taken the time out to make sure that it applies to them, right? So also though, if I have materials from, already in my Google Drive, I can add my own items to collections, which is really fun, right? Because now I can add a link. So like a Google Doc, you would just grab a link from a Google Doc or a Google slideshow. Or if you've got a PDF or an old graphic organizer that you can upload as, as a PowerPoint or as a Word document, you can do that as well, right? So like there's no wrong way to use Edwin, right? What if you only want one story, right? So maybe I only want this story. I'm going to delete all of these, right? And I'll delete this. Okay, and now I want to just use my own, oh, sorry, didn't delete it. Yes. And so I want my kids to do my own stuff, right? So then I would just add a file from my computer, right? And they can do the questions that I made myself. I don't need anybody else. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So that's the cool thing about a collection is it is completely up to you how you work it. And then you can just share it again with the link or the classroom button, right? So you'll see lots of great collections inside of the library, right? We've got some cross-curricular units down here as well. And we've got some other, more fun mixed media collections as well. So lots of great stuff in these curated collections. But you can also find collections that are in the featured section, right? When you first come into the library, you'll notice these big blue bubbles. And these are collections that we swap out to make sure that there's some real-time learning happening throughout the year, right? So school startup happened, right? So we had some original Get Started with Edwin collections, but now we've changed it a little bit because October is kind of more of a mental health focus month. So we've added a collection called Nurture Your Personal Wellness, right? And these will swap out all the time throughout the year. We'll have some for Remembrance Day. We had some great science ones for wildfires that were happening in June. So yeah, feel free to pop into here every couple of weeks and say, hey, there's great stuff in here. For example, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation just happened. So there's some materials there. Okay. So that was a quick dive into collections. Any quick questions from the crowd there, Alana?
Nope, we're doing okay. You can continue.
Awesome. You guys are so great. Okay, so okay, so I'm on to collections and moving on. All right, so now we're going to look at some of the assessment opportunities that are in Edwin. And so if as you're working with resources, you might be like, oh, where are some things that I can do to assess? And we're going to look at where those are. So there are great things like the self-checks that are contained with every resource, but we do have some rubrics and some graphic organizers and things like that that you can also use, right? And so if you haven't explored those fully yet, that's what we're going to take a look at right now. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back into Edwin. And this time, well, let's look at grade 6. So I've got all my units here on the side. And when I open up these resources, one quick thing to look at as a little clue, I shouldn't have looked at everything because that's way too many, is this related button, right? Anytime something has a related button, a related icon here, you're going to get extra things, right? So when I open up one of these, so let's see here, which one should we do? Persuasive rants, no, speaking up on names, developing a skit. This is a great one, right? Because this will also help with the new forms and structures outcomes, okay? And so it already points me to these related resources. And when I click on these related resources, you're going to get a whole smattering of different things that can help support this lesson. So not only do you get the lesson itself, right, where you can identify items and talk about things, right, and little interactives, you actually get some supporting materials, right? So here's a planning document, right? This is what the planning document looks like as I open it, right? So you can use this to help with some formative assessment because your kids can tell you what's going on with their skit, right? But what's really neat about Edwin is that we're not forcing this onto you, just like the collections that you can customize and change. You'll notice that we also include a doc version, right? So if you thought in that planning document that you didn't want your students to be working on tone, or they've already done purpose and audience in a different thing, you can easily take the doc, mix it up and change it, right? So that's a great little way to change those things. As far as, oh, no, he moved those. That's right. Sorry. I need to go back to grades. Let's hope it's there. Getting started. Here's the thing about Edwin. No, we don't have that one there right now. He told me he didn't have that. Is that we're always taking teacher feedback and trying to put things in the best place possible. And so they moved the rubric doc on me, and it was supposed to be there. Let me double check, go back again. I know that it's in grade 5. So let me go to grade 5 first. Sorry. Oh. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show for assessment opportunities as well. What we've done here is we've created this curriculum guide for you. So that way you can see which of these resources, so performing a monologue, moose nose soup, these resources will tackle these outcomes, right? So it's kind of in the checkbox situation there. So you can print off this curriculum connection doc so that way you can plan ahead of time. So that way you can know where things are going. So these curriculum outcome docs and connection docs are going to be in the getting started portion of the subject. So I'll go back and show you what that looks like. So most of our subjects come with a little front matter, just like a textbook would. And so these kind of curriculum connection docs or planning documents for the whole year are in here. So that's the getting started, right? So you'll open this up. And under the teacher notes, that's where that'll be. And so that's the same thing with, as I mentioned, some of the performance ones. So writing a speech. Oh, he doesn't have that there yet. Okay, here it is, right? So here's the performance rubric. So this is another assessment opportunity, right? Where you can see that this is a rubric that we have, and you can print it off or make changes as you need to do. So this is a great little tool for you as well. So that's kind of doing a more summative assessment. But as I mentioned earlier, a great thing about all of these, and I'm going to go to a reading one. Let's see here, do under one sun, claiming my identity, is when you click on the self-check button tab at the top here, here are some great I can statements, right? So we've been actually talking to our publishing team too, and these are going to be eventually tied to the new skills and procedures. So look for updates all the time. And that's kind of what is fun about having a digital text, is that we can do these updates, because if this was just a book, these would be set in stone for the next 15 years, right?
Edwin, it's a new platform for.
Hi, Radislav. Is it okay if you mute for a moment? Thanks. So by having self-check questions attached to resources, what's great is that you can use these as diagnostic to begin your lesson, right? So you can ask your students, do they know what identity is? Do they know what relationships are? And they can self-assess right here, right? And then as you progress through the lesson, you can use this as an exit ticket after, right? So that's how you can use those self-check questions. And as I mentioned, right, they are all over the place in all of the resources. So as students walk through a resource, right, they can self-assess here as well, okay? Now, this is why the dashboard was important, because that's where these self-checks end up going, right? So before I show the dashboard and how to use some of those metrics, do we have any questions about some of these assessment pieces, Alana?
There was just a question about how it can be added to Google Classroom, but I've answered it, so I think that you can continue.
Yeah, but you know what? That's a great one that I can actually show everybody as well. So I'm just going to go back to do. Was I in writing a speech? Yes. So if you wanted to share one of those with Google Classroom, if you liked the one that as it was, right? So pop open this PDF, okay? And then now you can just copy this link from the top here, right? And once you copy that link, then you can add it to Classroom, or you can, like I said, if you had one of these, you could just change that up and add the link, and it'll take them directly to that document. Another way teachers like to do that is when they're creating their own collections, instead of trusting that the student will open up the related resources and click on that to start filling out the rubric, what you can do is create your own collection, right? And so this is the plus button. So let's say I'm going to do this with my students, writing a speech. So I'm going to click on the create my own collection button up here. I'm going to click create collection, writing a speech for grade 5, check mark. Okay, now I'm going to open this one up again. I'm going to copy this link, right? And so now when I go back to my collections, right? So I got writing a speech for grade 5. It only has that one thing because I'm starting this one right from scratch, but I can add that item this time, right? So here's my add a link button, okay? Title, rubric, and then you can tell the students after your speech, fill out the rubric, okay, and save, right? And so there. So now I have the two pieces, and I don't have to. This helps for really direct instruction, right? Giving some structural reminders to your students so they can see what they need to do, right? And so I would then, of course, add my instructions for the students here, description for students, right? And do teaching notes, right? Go through the resource first, and then assessment, do the rubric, right? So such and such, of course, you can save those as you need to do. Oh, actually, you know what? Here's a good place since we are in here. I don't know if any of you noticed, but there's a teacher only button, right? So what I do like about Edwin is that it can be for students, but also if you're working with your own learning network or your own learning community, right? You can click on this teacher only, and then this could be your list of resources, right? So instead of using Google Drive or some other platform, if you're already working in Edwin, right, I could make this into a list of, say, YouTube videos or links to other places or all of my folders, right, by adding the items. And then I can share with my group, right, get the shareable link. And I'm not going to share it with my students. I'm actually going to share it with the grade 5 teacher down the road, right? So that's a great thing about these collections as well. They can be whatever you want to help support learning, either for yourself or for your students. Okay.
Sai,
Thanks.
there's another question that I answered, but it might be helpful if you can demonstrate.
Oh, of course.
One of the teachers said, I have a duplicate of a collection I created. How do I delete this duplicate?
No worries. Okay. I would love to say that everything is super intuitive in Edwin, but it's not, right? And so what you can do is you can click on your collections button there on the side, or from the home screen, you can then go to collections and say all collections, and you'll see everything. So now if I don't want one of these, this is really odd, but you have to click the select button first, and there's no real note to tell you to do this. So you click on select, right? And then you just click on the bubble. And now you have this option to delete selected, right? So now if I needed to delete the power of narrative or digital citizenship, I can just click on delete selected, right? So yes, not very intuitive, I know, but that's how you would delete a collection. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, no worries at all. Okay, great. Okay, so now that I showed the, what is it, the self checks, right? So this is the fun part about having your own dashboards, right? So you can click on the dashboard here, or you can come to the home, go all the way to the bottom, click on all dashboards, right? For yourself, you might only have one dashboard and that's all you need. That's great. But if you're teaching grade 5 and 6 this year, you might want to have 2 different ones, right? So the reason why you get students to join a dashboard first is to license them. But now that you have students in here, it's really cool. So I'm going to look at all of my students here. So I got my class here. I got Tom Brady, Noah Scott, and let's take a look at how Tom's been doing this here. So as you can tell right away, there are these self-check questions, and Tom hasn't filled out all of them. And this is the neat thing, is that he doesn't have to fill out any unless I'm giving the direct instruction. But what's cool is I get to see what he has been browsing and he's been looking at, right? And so as I scroll down here, I can see for this particular one, he spent 6 minutes in here, right? And I can see which of his self-check questions that he's doing, right? And so what's really neat too is if I see one, right, that I'll skip past these math ones, right? Or they're only math for Tom and science. Let's see here, fluid movement, ecosystem. Sorry, Tom's just a really big science kid, so I'll just use that as an example, right? So if I see there's 2 self-check questions that he didn't really like, everything in Edwin's interconnected, right? So if I click on this link now, it'll take me to this resource, right? I could skim it through it as a teacher and be like, oh, you know what? That wasn't clear, right? So I would know then that I need to do some more teaching in that area, right? So that's really cool as well, that you get to see how much time they spent and how they're answering their questions, right? So like, you know, if you have any athletes that say, oh, you know, I need 2 weeks of homework because we're going to Mexico for blah, blah, blah. And then you can move out. It's like, hey, you didn't spend any time looking at your homework. So quick little hack to, you know, keep a little bit of tabs on them there, right? So yeah, so this is really fun that way. And as I mentioned, it's a bird's eye view for your class, right? So this is just Tom. But as I look over here, right, I can see that, you know, Noah is about even, right? So if I need to do some pairing in the class, right, I might couple him with, say, you know, Jacob or Lincoln, right? But Audrey, she's struggling a little bit, so I might give her to somebody who, you know, is a little bit stronger, like Sophia, and that way I can get some ideas that way. So yeah, the dashboard is really cool for helping out with those self-checks and just giving that bird's eye view of the content that they're looking at. And secret, we are working on even making it cooler based on some feedback from Lynn and Kim and Camille. And so look out for some of these updates that might be rolling out in the new year, right? Okay, so those are dashboards again. Oh, also, if you have lost the link, right, That's where this comes from, right? To invite your students, the button is right there and you can click there. Or if you go to information, right, it'll be there as well. So yeah, you can always invite students to your class. And this is from information is where you can change those things. I mentioned that earlier, that if you were rushing to create a dashboard and you needed to update your changes, click on information, edit, and then you can change all of that stuff. Okay. All right. I know, lots of information. So any questions about everything today so far? So this is kind of how you get started working with material and setting up classes for your students.
It doesn't look like there's any questions, but maybe do you want to show them some of the Edwin essentials?
Yeah, so what's really fun too in Edwin is that you do get access to English language arts, right? And so we've got some content for grade 4, 5, and 6. And grade 4, we're rolling it out just to let the grade 4 teachers know. So we have 2 units there, but more will be coming, right? But another neat thing that you have access to when you click on My Subjects are the Edwin Essentials. And in the Edwin Essentials, these are kind of like cross-curricular units that you can use at any grade. You just have to customize a little bit, right? And so these are fun, and these get updated, you know, every couple of months to add a new topic or theme. So ones that could work really well for English language arts is this Plans for Success, right? So this little research skills, it kind of gamifies it and shows kids how to research and look at their information, evaluate the sources, right? And they come with these fun activity toolkits, right? So you're come up here to the related resource, and here's this toolkit, right? So this downloaded a PowerPoint for me that I'll open and I'll show in my screen in a moment. And so this kind of has some really great interactive kind of stuff for students to understand how to research, and they can fill in things, and there's little things to move for them, right? So that's kind of fun. And actually, based on a request from Calgary Catholic specifically, we've heard that some teachers are like, well, PowerPoint's not ideal. All my kids have Chromebooks, right? So I'm just going to show this off real quick. Truth and rec. Oh, actually, it's right here. What our publishing team has done is the toolkit, we have now a slides version and a PowerPoint version. So if you click on the slides version, right, it'll automatically ask you and your students to make a copy, right? And then we can do that. This is something that we love working with your school district on. So if this is something that is ideal to you for some of these toolkits or some resources that you would like some of this, then just please feel free to email me or Kim and let us know, and we can do some of this work for you so you don't have to, because sometimes the formatting is a little wonky. And actually, that's something that we've taken to our editors and been like, if you are programming or you're creating something, make sure that the fonts are applicable, that the sizes work and are universal. So that way, when someone does convert it, it's converted more smoothly and not things thrown out of place. So thank you for that feedback. And that's something we took directly to our team last week and made those changes immediately for Calgary Catholic. Okay. So I'm going to go back into the essentials here. Other great essentials are the digital citizenship essential. And for those of you who are also sneaking in a little bit of financial lit, these Money Matters essentials are great as well, right? So any other questions about essentials, Alana, or in the framework as well? Sorry, in the chat?
There's just some questions about what subjects they have access to.
Yeah, so for Calgary Catholic specifically, you have access to just English language arts, grade 5 and 6, right? But you also have access to the essentials. And at the very bottom here, you'll also have access to some French immersion, some physical education and wellness. And actually, I'm going to pop into here real quick to talk about SEL, because there's some really great resources in here that can also apply to your class, right? And we are going to, let me post that, sorry. Alana, can you post this into the chat, please?
Yes.
So I always make sure that I have a takeaway for who I'm presenting to. And so we've created this little poster for you to get started with Edwin, right? So what you'll get is 3 resources, links to interactives. So these are kind of fun resources from the new curriculum that you can rearrange things with your students, little drags and drops and graphic organizers, all built into them. So I split that up to grade 4, 5, and 6 for you, right? Also, then I included some of those curated collections that we talked about, and these are great for to start the year off. I included one on the comprehension of oral text and another for finding the main idea. And each of those come with one of those Edwin slide decks, and then the supporting documents for your kids to complete those. Okay. And one bonus is we're going to invite you to a live lesson. And actually, Alana is the host for this one. It's stress management using the SEL toolbox. So just like those toolkits I showed for truth and rec and for research skills, we actually have another toolbox and toolkit. And so you can work with that for social emotional learning. And we run these live lessons weekly. Okay, you can sign up by clicking on the link. And those are at 11 o'clock Mountain. So that's kind of a fun event that you can tune into, and we change those every week. We're also doing currently a Truth and Reconciliation series. We're on session 3 this week, next week coming up, and then we'll keep doing these lessons throughout the year, right? So they're kind of a neat way for you to see what teaching a class with Edwin would look like. So hopefully some of you check out this little poster so that way it gives you something to work from today.
And
so
if I could side, it's Lynn.
Oh, yes.
Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
So just a couple clarifications with the questions that are coming up in the chat. So for clarification, Calgary Catholic did purchase the English Language Arts and Literature component of Edwin. And so please ensure that you have actually chosen that subject area. If you haven't, Edwin will be following up with you to get you to change it. We have received funding specifically for this year's implementation, so it's really important that you adhere to that. And then the other piece to it is to, when we're looking at the essentials, and these are wonderful supplementary resources, we also want to bring to your attention the resources we purchased last year. For example, with the social emotional learning, that would be our emoji. So our grade 5, 6, and Mosey kits. So again, because it's new and it came out last year quickly, we just want to bring you back to remembering the resources that we purchased for you for last year, and certainly to further explore those or reach out to Barb Duncan, who is our wellness consultant, who can support you with some PD around that.
Yes, thank you, Lynn, for the clarification. And yeah, at the very beginning, after you popped out, I did show them how to make sure that they pick their subject specifically, right? So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, no worries.
And next year, it'll be another conversation next year when we do the 4 to 6 science.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So, okay. Sorry, all my screens. I have too many going on here. All right. So that's kind of essentially what I wanted to go over today with you all. I didn't want to like overwhelm too much. So I'm going to save time here at the end for any questions you might have, and I'll also direct you to help, right? So there is opportunities for you to find help in Edwin, and also you can email us. You can join these sessions that we mention every week. So for example, the one coming up that's going to be hosted by Alana very shortly. Those are on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Also, if you are having some trouble or you want to make sure you have a helping hand getting your students online to show off some of the features inside of Edwin, we do host student launches on Thursdays at 11:15. I know it's an awkward time, but we wanted to hit you right before lunch. And so you actually sign up and bring your class to a Teams Live event, and then they can follow along with some of the resources that the presenters go through. So that way that students can find out all about the features that are inside of Edwin as well, right? So, and I'll just show you where to find help inside of Edwin. This notification bell is your friend. This is also where we will announce new curriculum rolling out as well. So once we have some more units for grade 4, there'll be a little pop-up in here as well to let you know. And you can click on virtual sessions. That's how you sign up for everything. If you forget the link or lose the poster that we shared, you can click on virtual sessions. And this will give you a calendar of all the events that we're doing this year, right? So as I mentioned, we have these calls to action live lessons going, but we also have these live lessons that will be about, you know, the SEL toolbox and when we have these other sessions, right? So that is great to find that. And again, that's just click on the bell and then virtual sessions. That's where you'll find there. And if you need help, here's the little help button, and that'll take you to the help center. But I hope that you're going to use me as your own help center this year. I am available, and this is my priority. So feel free to email us at edwinsuccess@nelson.com or me personally at sai.cesana@nelson.com, right? And that's where you'll find support all year, and we can help find all kinds of stuff and help you with collections as you're going up throughout the year. So, yeah. Oh, Kim, you are muted.
It's been a day. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sai, and thank you all teachers for joining us today. We know it's a Friday afternoon before a long weekend, Thanksgiving. Just wanted to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and thank you for coming. And again, thank you, Sai. Please reach out if you need any support. We will be providing PG throughout the year. So I know some of those times were during your teaching times. Just like last year's rollout with the new curriculum, we will have PG funds where we can support you. So do know those are coming, and to check that LS Weekly, and we'll have all the links in there.
Oh, there's one question from Melissa, and so I'll go back and show Melissa how to do that. So So Melissa, it's not an information for subjects, right? So like to click your subject, you click on my subjects, and then there's a pencil on the side here, right? Or are you talking about the dashboard, Melissa? Okay, in the dashboard.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so going into your dashboard. Oh. Okay. Mine's being funny too, right? So you don't have an information tab. This one's not there. That's interesting. So, okay.
No, sorry, I have the information tab, but then when I click on it, there's nothing under my subjects and I can't figure out how to pick a subject.
Yeah, so you would click on edit, right? And then once you're in edit, then you should be able to click which subject on the right here, right? So until you click on edit, you can't select these. But once you click on edit, you should be able to select either English 4 or 5 here.
So there's another question, Sai. While we have access to the math and science, if we add them to our collection, can we access them later?
Not sure how I'm supposed to answer that one. Here's the thing about Edwin. Yeah, like if the system knows the link, right? So like it'll open to go.edwin and wherever the link is. And so, yeah, technically you probably would be able to access it, but you wouldn't be able to share it directly with your students, I don't think. But that is a great question. I'll have to check on that one as well. So, yeah.
And Danny, just as a follow-up, when we look at math, we have provided plenty of resources for teachers to support through 2 different platforms. So if you need any support with getting those platforms up and running, please do let us know, because we're happy to guide you through those. We're just mindful that we have purchased resources specifically to be able to support them. And so really encourage you to stick with the LAL in this particular platform, and then to really spend some time implementing and learning the other resources that we provided for you, particularly the math, because we do have it for some consecutive years. So, but Danny, just don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. New curriculum at cssd.ab.ca.
Oh, and Christine, yes, you can have as many dashboards for as many classes as you need. The big thing about the dashboard is just that first initial licensing for your for the students, but after they've been licensed, they can be added to any other dashboards as well. So even if you have to go cover a different school and you've got a different class, you know, you can still archive your one at your other school. I'll show you how to do that as well. I don't know, that is under. My bad, sorry. I have to go back to dashboards again.
No, it's good. I was just wondering about the split
Okay.
class and creating a grade 5 class and a grade 6 class so that I can assign assignments specific to each one. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Exactly. Yeah, you can have as many dashboards and of course, split class. That is a great way to do that. Yes. Oh, but though also, Christine, you don't need to have a dashboard to assign items, right? So you can just assign with sharing the link. The dashboards are more for, you know, just seeing their progress, right? So if it helps to separate, you know, between 5 and 6 in there for your, you know, brain, so you don't get cluttered with 15 students and one and 15 another. Yeah, so that's a great idea.
And just also a reminder, as we see like some wonderful connections and opportunities to integrate many of the curricular areas into ELAL, we know that's a perfect spot for that to happen. And a really authentic way in which to bring in that learning. I do want to be mindful though, and just recognizing that we are teaching from the curriculum. And so ensuring you're always coming back to tie the lessons you're choosing to our curriculum. Again, I always use it like the buffet. We have a buffet here, which is lovely, but we do need to make sure that we are accountable for teaching the curriculum. And so how are we creating those corrections first and foremost to the curriculum?
Yeah, Lynn, did you see where we moved those curriculum connection docs when you were here? So we've
is it
moved
in the
them.
getting started now? That's great.
It's in the getting started, right? And so when they go to the teacher resources, this is where that is. And of course,
Perfect.
as you know, we are working specifically with you and John to make sure that this is exactly what you guys want to Calgary Catholic. So yeah.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, those are, I love those. They're great.
That's Lynn's favorite.
Yeah.
It is. I know how hard you guys worked to put it together for us before we started this journey. So again, I just appreciate that responsiveness. And I know this will keep, even the feedback we're getting today, you can always already see where teachers are making connections and where some of our next steps might be. So really appreciate, again, just to echo Kim, your support, both of you, Sai and Alana, for being here with us today. And yeah, we really look forward to our continued partnership. It's exciting. It's exciting to get these resources built out and having things like the voice recorded that doesn't sound like a robot. So again, we just recognize the great progress happening, and we know everybody is developing in the air right now, like an airplane. We're building an airplane in the air. So appreciate you being here, and for everyone, and happy Friday, happy Thanksgiving. Go relax, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. It's a long weekend, rest up. We know how hard everybody is working. So thanks everyone. And I think we're good to go. You can stop recording, Kim.